Welcome to your doom.
What's up, folks? You're listening to the Welcome to Your Doom show.
You sound really somber. Jesus Christ.
We are your harbingers of doom. My name's Atul.
I'm a harbinger of doom. You are
A harbinger of sadness.
Sadness and sleep, I guess, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
I'm Justin. What's up?
I definitely,
You still feeling yesterday?
yeah.
Fucking
Was,
sports fan over here.
oh
I
my
wore the Raptors gear to commemorate yesterday. You went
Yeah.
to a Raptors
I
game.
went to a Raptors game
You went to
yesterday.
a shit show of a Raptors
Yeah,
game.
it was a bit of a rough go. But you know, for me, I was like still looking forward to going out after the game. I went with my brother and I made him promise. I'm like, even if they lose, we're still gonna go out and have fun. But he was a real
Debbie Downer. Yeah.
After it was all done, and I'm doing everything but, you know, being on a unicycle and juggling to get this guy
That could've
ramped up. And I thought, you know, let's get a little booze and, you know, we'll lighten things up, and, you know, more dragging, more depressing things got.
It was hilarious because your cousins, your cousins, we were trying to get them over it too. They kept bringing it back up. Then
Yeah.
you tried to change the topic. Yo, what would you do with $30 million? I'd hit 1 out of 7 shots. Above.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ, that's Lowry's salary.
Like, wow. I really
Awkward.
tried to get away from that. But anyway, we ended up going to a few bars after, so I'm still feeling it. You probably hear it in my voice a little bit, but I generally had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun.
We just got back from Hellboy.
Oh, hell yeah, we did. This is going to be one
And
of a few.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was one of a few puns.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, or should we just dive right in?
Let's dive right in. Let's get to the gist of this. This poor movie is getting lambasted on fucking.
Lambasted.
Is it lambasted?
I think it's I always pronounce it as lambasted, but lambasted
Just
sounds like you're cooking a turkey.
Yeah.
Like,
A little bit more than it needs to be. No, this thing is getting skewered on Rotten Tomatoes right now. It's sitting. The last I looked at 15%.
Yeah.
So this poor fella's not getting a lot of love, and frankly,
Well,
what?
are we jumping in?
I was just going to talk a little bit about the movie at a high level. Frankly, I don't get it. I don't think this movie is particularly great, but I also will say it's not a 15%er, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with you. Well, so let's dive in.
Do it.
All right, folks, slap on your evil Nazi 3D glasses. Let's dive into Hellboy 2019, a movie so rated R that I'm legitimately surprised the right hand of Doom wasn't used for some sort of carnal pleasure. This movie really wants you to know that it's a rated R movie.
Yeah, from the very
From
get-go.
the get-go.
The first shot is like a crow eating an eyeball.
Yeah.
Right out of its socket, out of a very, very disgusting looking
Cadaver.
corpse.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the problems with the movie. I think I'll start with some of the positive stuff that I actually like. In general, I agree with you. I don't think this movie is like the trash fire people are making it sound like. But it's not a particularly good movie. But it's not. I think there's stuff to enjoy here.
What would you say is enjoyable?
The creature design. I thought the creature design was really, really creative and well done. Like there's a man pig and a man boar in this movie. Then I wasn't sure. Sometimes it looked like it was practical. Sometimes it is almost similar to what they did with Wink.
Yeah.
In Hellboy 2, although not to that extent of animatronics.
Right.
But I did like because he seemed there were certain scenes toward the end where he did not seem as lifelike and organic. But when he's first introduced, I was kind of happy with how that character turned out. And he talks too, so it's like it's not just a one and done thing. It's a character that appears a lot during the movie.
He gets too much to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a lot to do. And the thing I would take away from the movie is that he looks a lot like Wink.
He looks a lot like Wink. He's in the same kind of role as Wink, except they tried to give him an interesting backstory, which just distracted from the film. I'm like, fuck off. I don't care. Let him be the evil henchman that just is there. I don't need his backstory.
So just purely on creature design, I thought that was pretty good. I thought Hellboy's makeup was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, David Harbour, the look he had was quite good. I particularly like the eyes, what they did with the eyes. That's You know, I thought that was better than what, you know, like Del Toro had done on the previous two movies. And in particular, the makeup and the creature design. I think Baba Yaga was the witch, like one of the, I guess she's one of the few witches in this movie.
Yeah. The really witchy witch.
Yeah. She was incredible. I thought that she was super well done. And I don't know how they did some of the stuff that they did, but they're, you know, extreme, like really unsettling. Great character, like a good character, I think. Like, so when she was on screen, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool, and I enjoyed that. And the giants, I actually like the giants, and there's a fight with some giants in there. So there's a lot of good creature design in this movie, a lot of creative stuff, and yeah, I mean that's kind of what I liked. Like some of the visuals were very cool.
Yeah.
And I think there were some cool things in the plot, but it's just the movie is just all over the place, that's really the big problem with this thing. That's a
huge problem. Yeah. This movie felt like, I think it was 2:10, let's say, roughly about 2 hours and 10 minutes long. It felt longer than it was.
Felt longer, yes.
And it was moving at a pace of breakneck speed and doesn't give you a minute to absorb anything.
That's true.
And it's whizzing through things and characters so fast that you barely develop any connection to them, frankly. So when you're bringing up John Wick,
no. I see what you did there. I see what you did.
No, so yeah, when you're bringing up Baba Yaga, it's interesting you hit on that because she was one of the most interesting characters in the film for me too.
She was,
and she's given very little to do. I would have rather you get rid of the whole Blood Queen angle and kind of have her be the one in the background. Like there's that's the thing is you whiz past her. Then you have the blood stories, frankly, pretty interesting origin.
Yeah.
But then you've also you're having a lot of screen time be devoted to this fucking Rocksteady character, Bebop or whatever one he is. Yeah. And there's just so many elements, so many characters going on the screen. You're whizzing from scene to scene, and it's like, why? There's just so much movie. This could have been broken up into 2 movies that are way more digestible by the general audience.
It's like they were very concerned with world building here. Yeah. It's like that was their first goal, was like, let's lay the groundwork for this world. But the movie suffers for it. But it's also clear that this movie has been chopped up.
Yes.
It's been edited. This is like, there's some Suicide Squad levels of like episodic editing in this movie. And this movie felt like 3 or 4 episodes of a TV show joined together unceremoniously, I might add. And it's just an editing pacing nightmare.
Yeah.
And you know, I was reading a little bit about Neil Marshall is a director that we both really like.
Yes.
You know, he's done one of what I think is one of the greatest visceral horror movies ever made in The Descent, which is a fantastic horror film, a really lean, mean horror film. But he also did Dog Soldiers, which we're both big fans of. And he did a movie called Centurion, which was also quite good. So he's on a roll. And then he directed a lot of episodes of Game of Thrones, and typically like the larger ones. So he's a capable director, and I was very excited to hear that he got the reins to this movie when it first came out. And then we heard that it was a rated R movie. And I was like, oh, that's great, because Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy is just that. It's Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. That's like Tim Burton's Batman. You know, that is Tim Burton's Batman. That's not really. There's someone with a vision.
Yes.
And they took something and they made it their own.
Yeah.
Right. Which is totally fine, because I like both of those movies, Hellboy 1 and 2. But if you read the comics, they're not. It's not the same tone. Right. And that's actually totally fine. And I like the fact that there's a different take on it.
Yeah.
Where his, del Toro's was more whimsical and a little more, fairy tale-ish. This movie, when Neil Marshall first came on, they're like, they're going to bring it back to the tone of the books. And I'm like, that's cool, because there's like this gothic horror element to the books that really all those other movies didn't touch on. This movie is not that.
No.
It's not this like gothic, this really gothic, ornate tone to it. They swung the pendulum in some weird rated R adventure movie direction.
Yeah. Where
it's also no closer to the tone of the comics.
No.
Even though it's more violent. And the comics are pretty violent, but it's weird. And I haven't read a Hellboy comic in a long time. But I've read like the Plague of Frogs and like the first few trades for Hellboy, and I really do. The tone was so important to those, like, and this movie misses the mark too, like on that. So I just wanted to lay out, like, a lot of people are like, oh, this is more like the comic books. In my opinion, like I said, I haven't read one in a long time. It's still not a lot like the comic books, even though
it felt like a comic book in terms of the way they paced the movie. That I'll say, because it's jumping from fucking scene to scene without very much. Like, it's just it.
It's an editorial mess.
It's an editorial mess, is what we're saying.
And David Harbour as Hellboy, he sounds like a drunk uncle the entire movie.
Right.
And then later he upgrades to a drunk uncle that doesn't have an indoor voice.
Right.
He's just yelling that entire movie, and he's also manages to be unintelligible.
Yes.
Like half the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with his line delivery, but I did not like it. I did not like... It's like he was doing the ADR with the makeup still on his face.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is, but it's like trying to wear a mouth guard and talk.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like. I'm like, why does he sound like he's had a few too many all the time?
It reminded me very much of when the vampires would have their teeth in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it just sometimes... That's why most of them they wouldn't speak, because it was just shitty prosthetics that they couldn't talk. But like when Angel had it, or Spike had it, or one of those characters, you could tell it was a little different, but they did a good job with it for the most part.
Yeah.
This one didn't. Harbour sounded like he was fighting with his prosthetics the whole time.
Yeah.
They looked great.
They looked great.
They didn't sound great.
Yeah. And that really... that was one of the things that kept coming back, because I couldn't get used to it.
Yeah.
Because where Ron Perlman's delivery, he has this low growl, but also super intelligible. Like I can hear what he's saying.
Right. Yeah.
For whatever reason, this movie, he just sounds slurry. Like everything's very slurred. And I didn't like that. Looked great, and I think some of the lines, some of the beats with the character are good. Mm-hmm. But it's just the delivery really kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah. Those, I mean, without going into spoilers, the biggest spoilers. The two things I really took away was that Harbour needed to learn how to speak with his prosthetics better, or they need to adjust that, because that was pretty bad, and the fact that the pacing was just a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, it's a total nightmare.
This
Too many
movie's
characters.
hard to watch. Like I would be hard pressed to recommend somebody to go and see this in the theater, to be honest.
Yeah.
And honestly, it sucks that, I don't like having to compare things to previous versions of it and say, oh, it's not as good as that. But to me, this just wasn't. It's definitely different, and it's just not as much. It's not as engaging. It's not as much fun, and it just doesn't hit the mark like the Del Toro films did for me.
I agree, but if you look at, and I think there's a huge factor here. Neil Marshall, capable director. Yeah. But what's happened here is that a couple of stories have come out since the movie has come out, talking about like studio interference, talking about David Harbour and Neil Marshall not getting along on set, and the studio firing, I think, Neil Marshall's DP that he's been working with for a long time. I think it was his DP, and just to prove to Marshall like who's in control of this set. Yeah. And Marshall, for big movies like this, typically you see the directors also doing some PR, right? So any big, like this is a pretty large movie. So like Shazam, for example, there are a couple interviews with the director, or like Marvel movies will have interviews with directors and stuff. Neil Marshall is nowhere to be found. He's not doing any PR. He's not doing any interviews. Nothing. And I think that's very telling about what's happened to this movie. And probably put together by the studio. He didn't get final cut. Probably he didn't. I'm entirely sure he didn't get final cut. Like the same way I'm entirely sure that Suicide Squad isn't David Ayer's final cut, because like you watch that movie and it's like a schizophrenic mess, right? And this movie obviously has some of the same problems. So it's stitched together by committee, and it feels like that. Unfortunately, there's some seeds of good ideas, and I'm sure there's a good movie in there. I think Marshall probably had a good movie, but then it got chopped to ribbons. Yeah, and or an entertaining one at least, like one that didn't feel so broken. Yeah. Right? But yeah, so like Del Toro has full control over his movie Hellboy, a singular vision. Yeah, and it comes out the way he wants it to come out. But this movie, obviously, the end product wasn't the product of someone's vision.
Right.
It was the product of committee.
When they had originally announced that they were going to be doing another Hellboy film, Del Toro was attached to it to some degree, but he wasn't. I think he was directing, but he didn't have creative control over the writing process. Like basically, they had taken the reins back, and as soon as I think it was Ron Perlman heard about. When they were talking to Ron Perlman about that, he's like, it's either all Del Toro's movie or nothing.
Right,
like, that's what's up.
Yeah.
And then they ended up backing it out, and that's when Neil Marshall, Marshall and
yeah.
David Harbour got brought in. So, yeah, I mean...
Yeah. And that's not to say that there's nothing to like about this movie. It's actually, like, if you're a monster movie fan, and I am, like, I found some of this movie to be quite entertaining.
Yeah.
Like I said, the creature design is up there. There's some big monster movie moments, and... It's just not well put together. It's just mechanically doesn't work.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out as a negative too was the score for this movie. This movie is, like I said, it's trying so hard to be rated R. Everything is loud about this movie. It's so obnoxious. Like it gets to the point where I'm like, I just can't. The music choices and some of these big, like the giant, like there's I'm not really ruining anything. He fights a couple of giants you see in the trailer, and it's a cool scene, but it's like every one of these action scenes is undercut by some like generic rock song.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, why? Like why? And this is where I'm talking about, like, you're talking about bringing it back to the tone of the comics. The comics have this quiet appeal. Like, that's what I would try to call it. There are moments of gothic grandeur, and it's like, these are quiet moments. Right? These are gothic horror moments. None of that is here. This is a loud, obnoxious movie, and the musical choices, like, cement that. And it was really annoying.
It's like formulaic action movie bullshit. Like, it's the same kind of stuff that you'd imagine... Like Iron Man 2, I felt like had kind of a lot of that kind of just throwing in formulaic kind of like action movie rock songs and shit.
Yeah, it's almost like the 90s, like the late 90s. Like they just have these generic rock songs playing, you know. And I'm like, you can't do that to this movie. This property is too unique to slap that shit all over it.
Or if you do it well. You can't, like, that's the thing, is it seemed slapping that shit on is a good way to put it, because it felt tacked on. It felt like, it sometimes, it made sense, but then at other times it's like, well, we just did this. Why are we doing this again? Do we need this?
Yeah. And the score is like I can't, we stayed till after the credits, so I heard a good sample of the score without any sound effects or anything. Mm-hmm. And it's obnoxious, and that stuff sticks out to me, because I like listening to scores for movies.
We always comment on it, every movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Either it's good or it's bad, but we always comment on it because we notice it. And this one was actually, for me, noticeably not noticeable.
The score?
Didn't care. Yeah. Didn't even notice it. Like, it was just there. Yeah, it's kind of like how I felt like with Justice League. Like,
the score was just kind of there. Yeah. No, I agree. I think I would agree with you more, but I was noticing the rock music, and it was really obnoxious. Yes. And then I was noticing the score, which is this electronically driven grindhouse kind of score. It's just I'm using the word obnoxious a lot, but I think that pretty much sums up my feelings. It's just this grating noise, and it's just loud, and it's like, I'm here and I'm loud and I'm rated R. You know, watch me. I'm different. I'm different than the last Hellboy. And I'm like, whoa, guys, you guys are beating us over the head with this stuff, and I just didn't. Yeah. So, do you want to jump into spoilers?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. I'm gonna zip through it though. The same kind of fucking pacing that they did in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically the movie opens up, and you get kind of just to back it up. There's a whole lot of like. What's it called? Exposition in this film. Every other scene's exposition, and the opening scene's no different. So the exposition there is basically like it sets up the whole King Arthur lineage and the history, which most of us know, and then also introduces the Blood Queen and how they chop her up, and basically just really selling that hard R. And then after that, it jumps right into Hellboy being in Tijuana trying to go pick up his buddy. He ruins a phone and goes and fucking wrestles a luchador.
So
it's amazing.
So that intro scene. Yeah. As soon as that started, and what's his name? The actor who plays Professor Broom in this movie.
Ian McShane.
Yeah. Who's also, they're all trying to out epic voice each other. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Like Ian McShane's talking really loud, and David Harbour's drunk talking really loud, and I'm like, why is everyone like trying to like out epic voice everybody else.
Yeah,
Like it's just
there's a scene in particular when they're sitting at the Winston Churchill table later on, and they're yelling at each other, and I'm just like, God damn it! Like somebody turn down the volume up there.
It's too loud, and maybe it was the theater.
Boomy.
Maybe it's the theater. Maybe because if you thought it was too loud, maybe it was
fucking Scarborough.
Yeah, I like my movies loud actually, and I think a
too.
lot of theaters don't play the movies loud enough. But I think the sound mix on this was just wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so he starts narrating over this.
Yeah.
This thing, but he is going. He's not even taking a breath.
Yeah.
The guy's just going at a steady clip. And
I was like, they gave him a flat fee. They didn't pay him by the hours. Like, let's do this in 5 minutes. Let's go.
Oh
One
my
take.
God. It felt so rushed.
Yeah.
That scene didn't breathe at all. And I'm like, oh my God, this is definitely, I feel like, I'm not in the business at all, but I've seen enough movies marred by that sort of editing by committee. This feels like a committee editing team that's like, we need to introduce this, and then we need to do this, and then we need to do this. It's like a computer putting a movie together.
Yeah.
And this scene, and this stuff is kind of cool and interesting, but it goes by, you blink and you miss it.
That's it.
And I was like, wow, whoa, take a breath. What the hell just happened?
Yeah.
I almost think they could have gotten rid of that opening scene. They
could've
didn't even
gotten
need
rid
it
of
because
a
they
lot.
actually go over that later in dialogue.
Yep.
They didn't even need it.
Yeah.
But in stark contrast, this Tijuana scene, I really liked it.
I liked it too.
I liked this scene a lot. And I'm like, if the rest of the movie was like that, then I think you would have had a different movie. That was like, came out of nowhere. It was very unique, very interesting. He goes in and he's trying to find an agent.
Yeah, Riaz or something.
Ruiz. And Ruiz was going to investigate vampires. And he finds him fighting in this ring, in this this luchador match, and he's become this luchador. But obviously something's wrong with him, and he challenges Hellboy in front of all of this entire crowd to a fight. And it's great. I'm like this, and the reveal of what happens, like you find out he's a vampire. He takes off his mask and he starts changing.
Yeah.
Great creature design, I thought. A good fight and a really interesting setting.
A very strange ending. How did he get impaled on something that is as dull as a turnbuckle?
Yeah.
It wasn't even like he slammed him. He just kind of fell and he's like, oh.
Yeah, it went right through. Maybe vampires' constitution isn't they're very spongy.
Maybe they're very spongy. It looks spongy.
But yeah, so it was I thought that was a great,
fun scene.
A fun scene.
Good dialogue.
Yeah.
The crowd reactions were pretty entertaining
Yeah.
too. And it's a good introduction to the new Hellboy character too.
Yeah.
Gives him it shows that he's different than Ron Perlman's take on it. A little bit more aloof almost. A little more, I don't want to say happy-go-lucky, but like he's not as stoic.
Yes.
He's just, seems a bit fragile, strong, but at the same time he's got a fragility to him. Fragility?
Absolutely. Yeah, fragility. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And one of the other things I liked about this scene was they fully addressed like the red shirt problem that I felt Hellboy 1 and 2 had, where these members of the BRPD would join Hellboy, and anyone who wasn't Hellboy, Abe Sapien, or like Selma Blair's character was like, okay, these guys are all just like in the meat grinder.
Yeah.
And this one directly addresses what can actually happen when an agent is lost in the field, and that Hellboy has relationships with these agents. And I'm like, this is great. I thought that was great because they do not address that a lot in the other movies. These guys just kind of die left and right. Hellboy 1, they kind of addressed it sort of, but this one just felt a little better because I don't know. I felt it felt better to me because so many other agents die in Hellboy 1, and he only cares about this one agent. Seems weird.
Yeah.
This one agent dies, he cares about him, and he goes on a 3-week like drinking spree in Tijuana. Sorry, the last thing I'm going to say about this is that they're also making a statement about this is different because everyone kind of is not surprised by Hellboy's presence. They're not particularly. So it's like people know like stuff is going on. Like, people know that there's more to this world than science, basically, and I think that that goes a long way setting up people's reactions later.
Absolutely,
later in the movie.
It was a very subtle way they did that. Basically, it's not only that they're aware of Hellboy, but everything else.
Yeah,
totally
a lot of other things.
Yep. So he goes on a 3-week drinking stupor in Tijuana, which sounds pretty friggin' awesome. But then not immediately. After 3 weeks, he gets sent back to the BPRD, talks to Professor Broom, his pops. It seems like they have a really good relationship. The whole shaving scene and stuff was kind of cool.
I thought that was cool. Yeah, I like the fact that he helps him shave.
Yeah,
but he's shaving his horns.
Yeah,
and it's that's the unique stuff that I actually liked.
Exactly. Yeah, and then he immediately gets shipped off to England to go and fuck with the Osiris Club.
Yeah,
and go kill some giants. Now, back to the Professor Broom scene. He was great. I do like Ian McShane for the most part, but he was uneven for me in this movie. That scene alone was great, but then later on in the film, I just wasn't buying it. He's just not as endearing as John Hurt, I guess.
Yeah.
John Hurt I'd say he was way more soft-spoken, obviously. I mean, who isn't around fucking Ian McShane?
They're trying to, like I said, they're trying to out-epic voice each other.
Out-epic voice. But he also had a stronger quality to him than I would say Ian McShane did. Maybe in his convictions or something like that. Yeah. Ian McShane just kind of kept, he just seemed like a guy that was on a mission because he had to do what he had to do.
He's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, but John Hurt, I don't know. It was more like warmer. A personal he's that definitely warmer. But I don't know. There's something more to his performance that seemed more convincing than Ian McShane's. Ian McShane's almost at times just felt like he was walking through the role.
Yeah. So I agree with you, but I think that's on purpose because this relationship between Broom and Hellboy in this movie is volatile.
It wasn't until it was, and then after that they beat you over the fucking head with it.
But even in that shaving scene, there's a couple of lines of dialogue where they're hinting at this relationship isn't healthy. So I wasn't surprised by how kind of cold Broom seemed to be in this movie. But it did feel a little mechanical. I agree with that.
Yeah.
They made the relationship a little more hostile in this movie, whereas in Del Toro's versions, that relationship there was a mutual respect.
There's a mutual respect. It was still at its rocky times, but at the same time,
yeah,
like the death scene from the Del Toro films in comparison with the death scene in this one was so much more impactful.
I agree.
And on top of that, the aftermath of it all was even better in that too. It was just I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll try and stop comparing.
Yeah.
Films.
For a man who doesn't want to compare,
it's just impossible not to. Yeah. I'll try to stop. But anyways. So anything else you want to say about that? The whole Osiris Club thing fucking was weird.
That was weird. So they call this thing the Wild Hunt.
Yeah,
and I think the Wild Hunt is a mythology some kind of European mythology, because I think like a couple of games like The Witcher 3, the Wild Hunt is a game I'm playing right now, and I think it's a common mythology, and there is a series of Hellboy books called the Wild Hunt, so I think that this is trying to tie some of that mythology in here. I was genuinely surprised when the Wild Hunt, when they're going to hunt these giants, they end up trying to kill Hellboy. I was genuinely surprised. I didn't think that was going to happen. And yeah, that kind of, did they even... I don't know. It just seemed a lot of lead up to nothing.
Yeah.
In that case.
That's par for the course for this movie for me. This one,
wasn't a big payoff.
It was not a big payoff. It just kind of, everything just seemed to be resolved almost too conveniently in multiple instances. Hellboy getting rescued there seemed too convenient, with the giants just showing up all of a sudden. Then on top of that, his rescue after fighting the giants just seemed completely convenient too.
Out of nowhere. It just like a car shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like getting shipped off. This is the end of this episode, and tune in next time. Here's the next episode.
Yeah.
And it's very episodic. What did you think of this action bit with the giants, the giant fight?
I like the idea of it. The choreography of how Hellboy would fight giants is pretty great.
Yeah.
But
didn't work for you?
No. The effects just, I didn't like them. Everything seemed very clunky, and not in like a giant is kind of slow way.
Slow, yeah.
Just seemed kind of clunky.
I definitely liked it more than you, that scene, because I think it was ruined by the musical choice, I think, but or I think a lot of it is the steam is let out by the musical choice. I think they could have done something a little more
grandiose.
A little better. But I like what they tried to do with the scene. They do a lot of one-shot takes, and like you're saying, how the mechanics of how Hellboy would fight a giant is actually, I think it's done relatively well. The effects do kind of suffer. This is not a massive budget film. But at the same time, I think the quirkiness of the designs of the giants themselves, the weapons they're using and stuff, I enjoy some of that creativity. So that's I think that's why I probably enjoyed that scene a little more than you.
Yeah, but, and that, like I said, I liked that part of it. The imagination of it. It's just the execution of it. It's I don't know, just didn't seem right. It's not going to hold up. We watched that on Blu-ray down the road. We're going to watch and be like, what about that?
Yeah. I also think this movie has an obsession with eyes.
Fuck yeah.
A lot of people get their eyes poked out.
Yeah.
I think Hellboy punches a couple of giants in the eyes with his right hand of doom.
Yeah.
And then this starts off with the eye getting pecked out of the skull at the beginning of the movie, and then Baba Yaga wants Hellboy's eyes. I mean, this is obsessed with eyes.
There's something.
And they don't really tie that in thematically. I'm not even entirely sure if that's on purpose.
I don't even know what the theme of this film is.
There is a theme there, but it's just trampled all over by a loud, obnoxious, poorly edited movie, I think. So anyway, he gets jumped by the Wild Hunt. They're saying that, hey, we need to kill you because you represent the end of the world. You are the key to the world's destruction. They try to kill him. They get jumped by the giants. Hellboy kills the giants, collapses, and is rescued by Alice, really randomly.
Out of nowhere. And they have a history. She's a medium, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's also when the BPRD catches up with her and Ian McShane is brought into it. And then you're also introduced to, what's that motherfucker's name? Daimyo. Yeah. Overall, I liked his performance quite a bit.
I did.
I liked him in pretty much everything he did.
Yeah, I like Daniel Day Kim in general. Whenever he's in, I think I saw him, last time I saw him was in Lost, so I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff. I just think that guy has a rock solid jaw. Like that, you can hang your coat on that thing. That his jawline is like.
It's a pretty epic jawline.
Yeah, it's an epic jawline, and the makeup they did for the scars on his face, I thought was really well done.
Very good, yeah.
And I was excited because this is a character that I read a lot about in the Plague of Flogs storyline.
Flogs?
The Prague of Flogs.
It's a bunch of flogs in Prague.
Plague of Frogs, and his backstory is really fleshed out in the comics. So and they do get into it in this movie, and and I was happy to see him. I thought because I think he's a really cool character. He didn't get to do a lot, but he's a great character in the comics. And if there's ever a sequel, I'd love to see that get expanded on. But
I think they did him justice in this film. They gave him enough to do. They could have given him more, but they gave him enough backstory too, and enough to do that seemed like for instance when he was when he had the responsibility of potentially taking out Hellboy, and then you could see his indecision about that, and eventually
that arc kind of does tie up.
Yes, absolutely. He had a very, very good arc. Is perfect.
So so you're introduced to these two characters. They have a scene that shows Hellboy's connection to Alice, and that's Alice, right? So they have. One of my favorite stories, the first stories that got me into Hellboy is this story. I don't know if you ever, there's a series of short stories, and one of them, he comes into this house and you don't know what he's doing. The parents are like, something's wrong with our baby. What's wrong with our baby? He comes in and it's this like quiet, dark, gothic, like village hut, beautifully drawn by Mike Mignola. And he says this line where he's like, I know what baby's like. Baby's like iron. And it's kind of like this really audience has as a reader you don't know what's going on, hitting the baby with the iron and the baby starts freaking out. That story is in this movie, and Alice is the baby that's replaced because it's this whole fairy thing where the babies get replaced. So he manages to get the original baby back and banishes this troll thing that's pretending to be the baby. It's shot god awfully in this movie. It's a god awful, mangled, and this is where I'm getting to the point where I'm like, the whole byline for this movie was to get closer to the tone of the comics. This is the exact opposite of that. Yeah. This is one of the stories that makes Hellboy endearing to me. It's one of the first stories I ever read. It's short, to the point, well executed, gothic, painted in blacks, very atmospheric. This is shot in the middle of the day. Everything's yellow. It's like Instagram happy shot. And I just couldn't. I was like, why? Like, why? Who made this choice? And it takes place in modern day. They're telling a modern day story, so you can't really get around that.
True.
But You know, I sound like there's like a lot of nerd rage coming. It's not like the comic books. I'm typically not like that. Typically, I'm not like that. Like, I actually want to see other people's visions of the movie, of any character.
Yeah.
I'm always ready to see something new, but I have to say I strongly disliked the way they told this story.
Just from a cinematic perspective, yeah, it didn't look great. It just was overblown. It was overly loud. They could have definitely had it way more understated, and it would have probably been more effective. You're dealing with a child that has been abducted, and is now being replaced by some pig monster. Yeah. Like, that could be something. That could be a much more emotional moment than like him running around trying to catch. I'm gonna get you. Like, get the fuck out of here. Just play it normal.
There's no atmosphere in that scene.
No. It's more of a comedy bit.
It's kind of like played for laughs. Yeah. Also, his makeup, where he's got a 5 o'clock shadow, I think is the only time where I really did not like the way he looked. I don't know. And that scene is so brightly lit that you're seeing everything, and he's clearly got a beard in that scene, and it just looks really awkward. Yeah. So that one really stood out to me. I saw that. I'm like, oh, they're gonna tell the story. I'm like, oh shit. They went in a totally different direction. Anyway, so that's Alice's connection. He actually gets her back, but she's also a medium. She actually has a really great way of connecting with the dead. This is one of those creative moments I really enjoyed.
We are in.
You didn't like that?
Stark disagreement about this.
All right. Well, let's go to the next scene then. Or I guess we'll see what they're talking about.
Let's just get into it. I'm not this at this point. Like, literally, the notes I put in terms of this, I put fish and chips, Baba Yaga, scary tree, King Arthur, end of movie.
Okay.
Hellboy pacing. So yeah, no. In terms of her powers and having it was just fucking gross for no reason.
Oh, it was gross.
It was.
It
looked like floating heads on top of CGI bodies.
Oh,
wait, what are you talking about?
Oh, no, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking. You're talking about what it looked like.
Yeah, I'm talking about what it looked like.
Okay, all right.
And I like the idea of her projecting the dead and being able. That's cool, but she didn't literally have to project the vomit out the dead basically and have them floating above. Like, it looks stupid. I mean, if somebody's going to be a medium that can talk to spirits, that's all well and good. You want to do something spooky where they're talking through you? Yeah. Totally understand. But they don't need to fucking come from inside of you out. It was just disgusting, and it looked bad. It looked bad. You, like, when the blind seer, I can't remember her name, was just floating above there, I'm like, ooh, this looks bad. I hope we don't see this again. And then later, I got to see fucking Ian McShane's head on, just floating around. It looks really bad. Yeah. I could not get on board with it. I liked what they were trying to do, but the execution was flawed.
I'm a fan of them trying something different because a medium... There's that cliched moment where, you know, the eyes roll into the back of the heads, the eyes are white and they're possessed, and I'm just so tired of seeing that. I'm so, like, that is a very, it's not that I'm tired and that it's bad, it's just a very classical representation of spirit mediums and stuff. And, you know, like the wind blowing around in the room and like the fucking, like, plates and, boxes and chairs and stuff floating in there, all that stuff. I'm so happy they didn't do that. So I like the idea that it's a tough thing to do. It's hard and it takes a physical toll, and being possessed is more than just, talking in a different voice. It takes a toll on you, and you're literally like you're bringing this spirit back into the world and you're vomiting them up. And I liked that a lot, which helped me sort of gloss over how sometimes how janky it could look. Yeah. But that's why I liked it. I liked it because they're like, oh, we're not just gonna do this same old nonsense. We're going to do something different.
The problem is trying something new. You're usually doing it amongst a team, and somebody can at some point be like, this doesn't work. I don't know how it went past everybody. Everybody's like, this is solid. Let's do this. Like, for instance, if you went into the bathroom and you went and took a shit, but instead you're like, you know what? I'm gonna mix it up and try something new. And instead of shitting in the toilet, you shit in your tub. And you're like, this is different. I'm pretty happy I did this. And then Shagu comes home later on, and she goes to take a shower. She opens up the curtain, and there's your steaming number 2. And she looks at it. She goes, what the fuck are you doing? And you go, well, I was just trying something new. And she goes, no, this isn't good. And then you go, oh, well, that didn't work, so maybe we won't do it that way. Maybe we'll stick with the more classical interpretation of taking a dump in that toilet over there. That's kind of what I see here, and nobody was playing the role of your lovely wife.
That is quite the colorful representation of your feelings.
It's pretty accurate.
Well, I'm glad this movie took a dump in the tub.
It might as well have. See if this thing gets good. It's pretty ambitious in that it's like, yo, we're gonna have a sequel. Look, Abe say, wait, where's everybody going?
So the Osiris Club ends up getting killed because the pig monster is putting this witch that was decapitated at the beginning of the story by King Arthur's Excalibur back together, like Humpty Dumpty. And so the Osiris Club has one body part. There are other places in the world he's going and he's putting her back together again. So the entire Osiris Club gets annihilated, and then I can't even remember what happens here.
At this point, she's basically they've got all the pieces to put her back together. The last piece, the last arm, was at the Osiris Club, and now the BPRD is trying to figure out where she's at.
Oh, right, that's right.
And then
we get this scene.
Simply convenience, and I didn't like how they got there, but I'm glad they got there.
Yeah.
He goes and visits John Wick. And John Wick, all peg-legged and walking upside down and stuff, those scenes were great. The set that they used for that walking thing.
It's cool.
So cool. It looked great.
It. Yeah.
The big dirty spread of children's children food.
It's
not
fingers.
Food. Yeah,
fingers. Eating the fingers in the stew. Yeah, so
graphic.
this is all from, I think it's a lot of the Baba Yaga is a character in that short story, and or one of the short stories, and it's really, really well done with the house with the chicken feet, giant chicken feet, and they actually use that as a part of the fight scene.
Yes.
Another really great, unique angle they took. Baba Yaga's makeup, really, really well done. Her dialogue was really, really cool too. And they're sitting together eating at the table, and you see so this is what I didn't get about this scene. He's basically summoned by Baba Yaga. So he tries to go in the elevator, tries to go up, and then it goes down, and it goes down forever, and he's in another world basically. And he finds out that she's been eating children, and are they in the real world, or are they in some fantasy land? Because they're in a foggy environment, classic sort of foggy environment. So I'm like, are these children real?
Well,
or is this some kind of
she's trapped in some dimension? That's what they mentioned.
Yes, he mentions.
But then the question is if she can get people to come into the dimension, what's stopping her from getting out? How is she luring people in?
Yeah,
is she just taking them in because she can take everybody and anybody in?
Yeah.
If that's the case, why isn't she bringing a lot more people?
It seems not well put together.
It was not well put together. Once you're in there, all well and good. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the whole getting in and coming out of it was janky and just written in there for convenience. That's why I'm saying it would be better if the Baba Yaga character was the main antagonist in this, because one, she was way better than the Blood Queen.
Yes, that's
more
true.
Interesting, better design, across the board better. Yeah. And in this one, she's not really given anything clear to do except for just kind of show up for convenience sake.
That's true.
I don't know what she was doing to help the pig guy.
Yeah, because she's basically summons him, and I don't know. She says, "Put together the Blood Queen." She asks him to do that, and I don't know. She seems to be able to summon people. Did she summon the children to come?
Yes.
It's just weird and not really well thought out.
No.
But this whole scene actually is a very cool. It's it would make for a good Hellboy short film.
There's a couple of those. The last scene in the film too would have been a good short.
Yeah, that's right.
Short.
Yeah, it's a good short film. Yeah. And she makes this deal for his eyes because he had poked one of her eyes out, right? Continuing with the theme of losing people's eyes, and she asks for one of his, and they have a fight. She tells him where the Blood Queen is, but doesn't give her his eye. And he manages to leave, and this is obviously a sequel baiting thing going on here, which is she'll make sure that he gives up his eye. I don't know if you noticed, I did. She had saggy old hag titties.
Yeah, they were hanging low,
and it was just really. It was great. It was distracting, but it was just the design. The design was there's so much detail.
Yeah.
There, and they didn't skimp out on the detail.
Her smile was worrisome.
Yeah.
It was stretched all the way back to her ears. It was just. Yeah. It was the design, the creature design on her was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really, really, real well done. So he ends up warping back into reality, and he knows where he has this speech with his dad. This argument he gets into. He's like, I liked that. I like that whole idea, and I think that's something that this movie shares with Del Toro's version, where Del Toro has a lot of the sympathy for the monster stuff, and especially in Hellboy 2, when Del Toro, when Hellboy kills the giant plant monster. She's one of the Darklings or whatever says that this is the last of their kind, and you've just murdered him, right? Yeah. So they do something similar here, where Hellboy's like, maybe if we didn't, murder all of these, creatures that live in the shadows, like they wouldn't want to murder us. They don't really go anywhere with that though, and it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
And I wish they went somewhere with it. I think that would make a great and there is a thematic like closure to that, but it's not really well executed. It's just they don't really go anywhere with that.
No.
And it's unfortunate because I thought it was a pretty good conversation, even though they were trying to out epic voice each other the entire time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then they go and they
go to the tree where she's getting her blood back, which will give her groove back.
Yeah.
And they get there. They have to fight some zombies. Hellboy goes up there and shoots her in the head, which her eye was dangling out.
Her eye, another eye reference. Yep. Yeah, her eye is dangling out. Yeah.
And she ends up getting away. She's clearly overpowered. Like,
I don't even know what her plan... Like, her plan is to clean up humanity, right? But also to bring these creatures that have been living in the shadows.
Yeah.
Again,
she's multitasking.
She shares a lot in common with the prince's character in Hellboy 2.
Yeah.
So for as different as this movie wants to be, it actually shares a lot with the Hellboy 2 like plot.
It shares a lot with those. Between, like, you basically rehashed his intro scene, which the only real good thing about that was you got to see Lobster Johnson.
Oh, we totally skipped over that. Yeah, Lobster Johnson is in this, and he's hilarious. He's great in the comics. And I'm completely surprised. I had no idea Lobster Johnson was going to be in this movie, and he's played by
Thomas Hayden Church.
And he's got a great intro line.
Yeah.
He's like, "Guten Tag." He says it like such an American. It's when Hellboy is being summoned, and instead of like regular Allied forces and Broom, like interrupting the seance, it's Lobster Johnson and the Allies, and that's where we get to see the Nazi with the crazy 3D glasses. Yeah. I was like, wow, look at those bad boys.
Yeah, but you also rehash all the old characters from the
other movies.
Yeah, like Rasputin's there, Cronin's there. Yeah. I think the blonde girl was maybe what's her? I don't know the character's name.
Yeah,
but like they rehashed a lot of it almost. I don't want to say frame for frame, but they obviously didn't. But it was there in very much the same capacity. I'm like, do we need this?
Yeah.
Like it's another devotion of like 5 minutes to something you really don't need.
That's true.
Honestly, like the father-son dynamic and how they're arguing with each other, it didn't add anything to the film for me. You know what I mean? Like they could have had them have a bit of a dysfunctional relationship that he turned him into a weapon right from the go.
Yeah, they didn't need that. They didn't need that flashback.
No.
You're right. They didn't need it. They had it because of their building. They're trying to build this mythology, this world, and they didn't need it. It's just that relationship doesn't need a flashback to be explained. No. The one thing it does pose the interesting question is, why didn't you kill me? Because Broom was there to kill whatever that comes out of this portal from this seance, and he decides not to.
Right.
So I think that was a big thing. He keeps asking him more than once during the movie. It's like, I know you were there to kill me. Why didn't you kill me?
Yeah.
So, but they didn't need a flashback to show that.
No.
That's a question you can pose without taking up that runtime. This movie is too long.
It's way too long, and it's moving at too many. It's shoved too much stuff in it.
So
they fail at the tree, and then at that point, Alice gets infected by the crown barb. So they go to see Merlin in a cave because reasons.
Holy crap! So let's just unpack this one scene here. First of all, the top of this hill, this scene is shot so dark I can't fucking see anything, which really sucks because they have a lot of these creatures here. And you know what's funny? Like, she's trying to bring those creatures back, like they're supposed to be, okay, now we're gonna, like you get to come out of the shadows, you don't have to be afraid anymore. Then at the end of the movie, it kind of changes. Those creatures, none of those creatures are seen at the end of the movie. It's like hell. She's opened up a portal to hell.
Well, no, it's him that opened the portal to hell. As soon as he's got the sword, it's game on for hell.
So those are not the same
I don't
creatures,
think so.
right?
Because
that's what there was no similarities between either set.
Yeah.
So I was confused about that, and the other thing I was confused about was this whole thing with Excalibur. Like, she goes into a portal, leaves, poisons one of her friends, and then gets a subplot that wasn't needed at all was the fact that one of her subjects betrayed her.
Yeah.
That's how, King Arthur got the better of her. But they seem to be alive and well and are exactly the same age. They come out of the tree, whatever, and she kills 2 of them, leaves one alive, says, hey, you need to make sure that Hellboy goes to see so-and-so, and then leaves, then poisons the girl with the barb, and then the witch that had the job was like, hey, I know I can save your friend, go see, this old guy in a casket, and it happens to be Merlin, to take the poison out, and then Merlin is like, yo, you need Excalibur, because you're related to King Arthur. And they have this crazy flashback. It's like, your mother, got it on with some crazy goat demon, which I thought they really kind of glossed over, this goat demon thing. And it's like, but she was the last descendant of King Arthur, so you have King Arthur's blood in you, so you can get Excalibur. And now I'm summoning Excalibur here. You need to grab it. He grabs it, and he gets this crazy, heavy metal, inspired, vision into the future where he's riding a dragon.
Yeah.
And it's completely like the most metal thing I've ever seen. And he's just he's leading the armies of darkness, or hell, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, I shouldn't grab Excalibur, because if I grab it, then bad things are going to happen.
Right. Which, frankly, Merlin should have been on top of that. He should have known that.
That's what I don't understand.
Yeah. Was Merlin in on the joke?
Was Merlin working for the Blood Queen? Because
so I think he's just bad at his job. I think he's incompetent. He didn't actually look at what he was doing. He's like, yeah, that sword will do it. Oh, shh! Don't grab the sword.
Yeah, because the Blood Queen wants him to get the sword.
Yeah.
So I was very confused. And Merlin's like, you need to do it. It's your destiny.
Yeah.
But doesn't Merlin know that, Buddy is supposed to be... He knows who his mom is. He knows who his dad is.
Yeah.
It's like, don't you know that, if he grabs a hold of this sword, bad things are going to happen? Didn't make a lick of sense.
No. It was all very confusing.
The whole Arthurian thing, I like the idea
of
weaving that mythology in, but man, they really it's really clunky and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's it's par for the course of this movie.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's really too bad.
I also like how Merlin made Alice and Daimyo sleep. He just kind of like go to bed.
yeah. It was like one of those what do you call those religious miracles?
Oh yeah. Or a hypnotist, or just being like, all right, yeah, sleep, and then
yeah, that's right.
So after the King Arthur thing, then they go and see. Sorry, after the Merlin thing. What happens after that? They go straight to the church?
Yeah, they go to London because the Blood Queen is now all infecting. Got all of her body parts.
Right. And she fucks up the BPRD.
Yeah, she's attacks the BPRD, spreading the plague around that she was intending to do. But none of these creatures that she had given this big speech to are there. This is why I was so it was so discombobulated, because I'm I thought the whole idea was there was
monster party.
It's a big a coming out party for all of these monsters, and none of them are here. And it's just you with a couple with the plague thing. So some of them are here. I guess there's some flying around the spire of the church, but
maybe
there's none of the monsters that appear at the intro or on the hill when she makes the big speech appear.
Right.
So, but then anyway, they go to the church, and they have their final showdown with the Blood Queen, who has captured Broom, his father.
Yeah, captured Broom. The pig is now big. Big pig.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big pig. He got an upgrade. He leveled up.
Yep.
And they have this fight, which was kind of fun.
It was a good fight. Yeah. It's actually I'd say it's my second favorite fight scene of the movie. I really like the stuff at the end, the complete the ending thing.
Oh, okay.
That was fun. I like that a lot. When they're when they go and find Sabian.
Oh yeah.
That was I like that scene. Yeah. It was nice and colorful.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But this one, it was. I thought it was well choreographed for what it was.
Yeah, pretty nifty.
When Daimyo got in there, got into the fray, that was also really good.
That was cool. Did you see that coming? Did you? Did you know? Did you
ever
read any of the books
seen
with Daimyo in it?
No, I didn't read any of the books with Daimyo.
Oh, but it's in the trailer, isn't it?
Yeah, and I knew that something was coming. Even if I hadn't seen the trailer, I knew something was coming because they had alluded to that with the whole injector thing.
Yeah. Oh, right. That's true. They of course. Yeah.
So I would have known something was coming, and it was good. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, he's basically like a were-jaguar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a cool moment too, because then they both they have that moment where he changes and then they both go and fight this giant pig monster at the same time. I thought that was pretty fun. It was
good.
And the Blood Queen shows up, says, "Piggy, I don't need you anymore."
Yeah.
And makes him so small he kind of explodes.
She has more powers, I guess.
And I hate the force powers, the generic moving shit with your hands. I've always hated that. The Magneto Gandalf force power thing where she just drags shit and was able to stop people from moving, lifting them up and stuff. It just doesn't make any sense, and there's really no power cap on it.
That's the problem, is the power cap. At least Magneto, it's got to be metal. That's okay.
Sure, yeah.
But like, I'm thinking more of like the Jean Grey from like the third X-Men movie, and I'm like, that's just fucking
ridiculous. Or like Ares from like the end of Wonder Woman, where he's like, moving stuff around, and I'm like,
stop it.
Stop doing
just
that.
Leave it where it is.
Yeah, just stop. That seems to be every writer's answer when someone has to be powerful. He's just moving stuff with their mind, and it's really generic and cliched, and I don't like it.
I don't like it.
So Excalibur ends up being in the basement.
As soon as I saw that, I literally, like, in my head, I thought, fucking of course, why not? Because let's just throw something else in here.
Yeah. So apparently, like, when he went to grab Excalibur the first time with Merlin, Merlin was using his power to summon it here, and then it disappears. So, but anyway, it's been in the basement of this cathedral the whole time.
Yeah.
So he goes down there and he's gonna grab a hold of the sword, but doesn't do it because he knows that something's gonna happen. And she force powers drags his dad over there. She kills his dad, kills Broom.
And Alice vomits him back up and is like, hey, he has something to say to you. And he's just there with his fucking head.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Hellboy,
but
be who you are. You're a good man deep down. But Dad, and they just keep yelling over each other.
Like, grow up hair.
Grow up hair. He was being a dick.
Who wrote this dialogue? It was really bad dialogue. But I don't understand why he grabs the sword.
I don't know.
Why does he feel compelled to? Or
no, I think he just wants to fuck up the Blood Queen, but then he picks it up and he's
like super
completely taken over.
And I thought this design is great because this is
it's always been good.
This, like they even do a bit of that in Del Toro's Hellboy where the horns come back. He's got the wreath of fire and this flaming sword. Like I said, metal is all hell, but looks really cool.
Yes.
And he has a conversation with her, like you said. The medium resurrects Broom and he comes out floating. I like how you did this. He's just kind of like floating, like a genie, like attached to a lamp kind of thing.
Yeah.
And,
one made out of like the organs. Internal organs. Oh, so gross. Where does the hair come from?
I don't know.
He's got a hairy pancreas or some shit.
Do you remember that? That reminds me of that line when Baba Yaga wants his eye.
Yeah.
He's like, do we need to like sign a document or something on this deal? And she's like, no, we'll seal it with a kiss.
Oh, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, this is not going to go well for anybody involved.
It's so disgusting, and I loved it because she kisses him and he mumbles to himself. He's like, how do you have hair on your tongue? It's a great line. Really funny, but that kind of reminds me of that. Anyway, Broom comes up and gives his pep talk, a really awful pep talk to Hellboy or Super Saiyan Hellboy, and he ends up cutting off the Blood Queen's head. Again, she gets decapitated again, and there's something about talking heads that I find really funny. I think it's just like a head that just like and it's not attached to a body. I think that's just funny. It's comedy gold. So they're trying to play a scene seriously when there's like a head talking, and then he's got a great one-liner at the end where he's got their head and he's gonna throw it into the pits of hell.
Yeah,
and he's like, "You should quit." And there's this really, it's like, "You should quit while you're paw's head." And throws the head into the pit. And I was like, what is it? The line was delivered so awkwardly, it just worked for me for some reason.
You know why it worked? Is because it was like he was going to say it, like, I'm going to make this funny-ass line. And then as soon as he says it, he's like, the fuck am I saying this for? Oh, this is so dumb. Head. And then he just talks. That's the way I read it.
He just stops caring by the end
he's just
of the
line.
line.
This is stupid.
It was really awkwardly delivered,
But in a good way. I think it worked.
So when he grabs the sword, just before he lops her head off, that's when these giant monsters start appearing, and I guess this is like the forces of hell.
Yeah.
I guess. And there's some disgusting shit that happens here, and it's completely, I don't think it's really that earned or anything.
Gratuitous and unnecessary.
Yeah, it's pretty
gratuitous. It's just basically them, like, using that the hard R rating.
Yeah, he's like one guy gets his skin ripped off his face.
Yeah,
and he's just
grabbing at his face.
Yeah, grabbing at his
face.
Got
another guy get wishboned.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like
Bone
Tomahawk style. And the designs for these creatures I thought were really cool. I thought they were really neat.
They were.
You've read Berserk, right?
Yeah.
The anime?
Yeah.
Or sorry, the manga Berserk.
Yeah. This is a good comparison.
When I saw this and I saw the amount of violence that was occurring, it gave me like heart palpitations because I was thinking of the eclipse scene from the Berserk
I didn't even think
manga.
of that. That's a good comparison.
And because that scene just like, oh god, it's a gut-wrenching scene to read or watch in the anime because you know these characters for so long in Berserk. Anyway.
Right.
But they have these demons, and there's this giant sacrifice, and it's really bloody, and there's very imaginative demon designs, but they're all really perverse.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of where they were going with this. They're like this perverse sort of demon design, and I thought that was pretty cool, but it's short-lived, but pretty neat, but it is very gratuitous.
Very gratuitous.
A lot of innocent bystanders get... there's a couple people get kebabbed. Like
Yeah,
the guy's just
on the guy's
walking.
leg?
Yeah, he's just like collecting people as he's walking. Like a kebab skewered. So yeah,
I'd like to see that scene re-edited with like the what is it? The Seven Dwarfs. Whistle while you work.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of
and
walking.
he's just walking around, just stepping on people, making his leg skewers.
Yeah.
So yeah, then as soon as he kind of wises up, puts the sword back in, which I guess it's still there in the church.
Yeah.
Because he can't really move it after that. He's like, if I do this, I gotta do it quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, the sword's got to be still there. And then they move on from there. It's the end of the movie, and then you have that really cool action scene at the end where they essentially find Abe Sapien.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is why they included the Order of the Osiris and all of that stuff, because what they're doing at the end of the movie, just before the end credits come up, is infiltrating another order.
Yeah.
And these orders all have these relics. So they go in and they find... and this is the action scene you liked. It's kind of like the one-shot action sequence.
Yes.
When I saw shots of this in the trailer, it looked like a made-for-TV thing with the colors that they were using, and I didn't like it. But that was completely out of context, because this scene is actually a one-shot action sequence, and it works much better in its full form than it did in the actual trailer, because the trailer made it look cheap.
Yeah.
And this was actually, there was more thought put into this one.
Right.
So I did dig it. I did like I liked the giant fight better than that one, though.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so then they find the hand comes, Abe Sapien's hand comes up on the tube, and that's it. Yeah, that's the end of the movie. And then we have a post credits sequence where Hellboy is getting drunk by his father's gravestone, and the ghost of Lobster Johnson shows up and just gives them this really funky pep talk. I kind of liked it because it was really random and strange, but it's showing that the ghost of Lobster Johnson lives on, and that's a lot of the books kind of like have Lobster Johnson as this force ghost, basically, and how ridiculous his character is. He's totally, it's a lobster symbol on his hand. He's got the lobster burner that he burns his victims with, and it's like a lobster claws burned into their skin. It's just so silly that I kind of like can't help.
The name's silly.
Yeah.
Lobster Johnson.
Yeah, that's right. It looks like a giant Johnson. And then there's a post credit sequence. So that was kind of the mid credit sequence. The post credit sequence I stayed for because I read that it was with Baba Yaga, and I wanted to see the makeup again because I thought it was really cool. So there's a scene where Baba Yaga is summoning another person into her office.
Right. And I looked it up. She's talking to Koshki.
I don't even know who that is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Slava Koshki. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
The Immortal or the Deathless is an archetypal male antagonist. I mean,
I think that's a general mythological thing.
Yeah.
So I think Hellboy appropriated that for its own stories.
Yeah, maybe.
But she's talking to him, saying that you need to get Hellboy's eye.
Yeah.
For me, and I will give you what you can't have, which is your own death.
Right.
But the whole shot is a Steadicam shot on her.
Yeah.
On the at the dinner table, and it's slowly zooming into her face. Again, I was just really happy to see the makeup again because it looks so good, very convincing. So, and that's pretty much it. And then the score kicks in the score kicked in before that, and it's just a really not a subtle score at all. It was just really bombastic for no reason. But yeah, so that's Hellboy 2019.
2019. Fuck, I hate having to tack on these years at the end of movies.
Yeah, so I guess the general thoughts I have, I don't think it's as bad as people are saying it is, but I wouldn't recommend anyone, if you like monster movies, if you're kind of a monster fanatic, you can get some mileage out of this, and I kind of did.
I could see you getting the Blu-ray for it because I could see you wanting to rewatch some stuff. Yeah. And probably the special features might be interesting, but
certainly, definitely.
The downside is that this movie felt like you said, it was made by committee, and then with all the stories coming out after, it doesn't feel like it was made with nearly as much love as, and I'm not comparing to, but I am, the Del Toro films.
Yeah.
It just seemed like they had an idea and nobody executed on it that wanted to. You know what I mean? Like the studio. I
agree.
I think Neil Marshall, like we've already said, he's a very capable director. Yeah. We've liked most of the stuff that he's done. I think he had a vision for this, and unfortunately, as studios do, somebody got in the way.
Yeah, I think so. It's weird because we'll never know the real story about this stuff. Maybe in a couple of years, Neil Marshall will do like a candid interview and maybe talk about it.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite stories, I think makings of movies like this like spawn great documentaries. Mm-hmm. Like the Death of Superman Lives. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a great documentary about that. But then Alien 3. The documentary that's on the Alien Legacy, like the Blu-rays. It's great because it's super candid about what happened during the prep and execution of that movie. I'd love to see what happened to this movie.
Yeah. I can see that.
I think there's an interesting story there, but in the end, I don't think it's the real. So it's so awful, but at the same time, it's not particularly good.
No, I guess you know what it is. I mean, here's the thing is about Rotten Tomatoes is 15% doesn't mean that it's 15 out of 100 as being good. It just means that only 15% of the people said that they would watch it.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that everybody hated it, but
it's not worse than another movie that got 50%,
exactly.
for example, because we've talked about this.
We talked about this, yeah. If it was less than 5, I'd be worrisome. That being said, when you were sending me times to go and watch this, you were sending me IMAX. I'm like, 15%? I'm not spending IMAX money on a 15%er. So I guess I did let it influence me in one regard. But frankly, I kind of came into this podcast kind of wanting to shit on this movie.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like we've been kind of stroking a lot of these movies in some regards. What I mean is there hasn't been any serious hate on for many of the films we reviewed lately.
I was just thinking about this. Yeah. I thought this was going to be that.
I was hoping it was because I haven't shit on a movie mercilessly in a while, and I didn't get a chance to this time because this does have some redeeming qualities. But at the same time, I would not recommend somebody to see this in the theater because, frankly,
just wait for it.
Yeah, it's worth watching to check out, but it's not worth an IMAX ticket certainly. And
yeah, I was thinking about the movies we've been reviewing, and they've been even for the ones that we don't. For me, I tend not to shit on. I know you do.
I love
it. I think the last time this really happened was with Alien Covenant.
Oh.
you had a good time with that, but I think we need to go see movies that we just simply don't like at all. I feel like a lot of the movies that I see, I definitely focus on the positive side. So I think that makes me less likely to just be like, oh, I hated this movie, and let's do an hour-long podcast where we just shit all over it.
Yeah.
Shit in the tub, shit in the sink, shit everywhere, right?
Got to experiment.
Exactly.
Do things differently.
That's right. And we just haven't found it yet.
No.
And I don't know. I think it'll happen. It'll happen soon. Although there's stuff like the score. I shat on the score of this movie.
No, I'm not saying I didn't say we didn't shit on this movie. I'm just saying it wasn't like
I could be hateful.
Alien Covenant.
Yeah. I could be hateful, Justin. I promise you, the next movie we see, I'll shit on it.
Yo, we should do disagree to agree. Disagree to agree. We just force one of us have to shit on the other movie.
Endgame. Okay, when we go see Endgame, we do that I promise you, all I'm gonna do that entire podcast is shit on Avengers Endgame.
Fair.
That's it. That's all I'm gonna do.
See how it goes. All right. Well,
I'm excited.
I think this is a good way to wrap this up. What do you think? All right. Well, thanks for listening, and if you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much for watching. This has been our episode on Hellboy 2019. I hate saying it.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Drums.